So, this is my second day of Civ. This is my Civ journal. It used to be green, but for some reason there was magic and now it's black. Maybe it was fairy dust. Who knows? But, so basically this is just going to be where I record all of my notes for Civ. But today, day 2, was history. And so Dr. Tate, who is my professor for the history portion of the class, he was the one that was teaching. And we were talking about the Romans. And the Romans were really, really interesting. And so he had a lot of interesting things to say. But there was one problem. I didn't exactly know how to take notes. Because he had slides, but he would talk. He would talk a lot, and everything he said didn't seem to be on the slides. So I would spend so much time trying to copy down what the slides had suggested to copy down, but then I would miss so much information that he was talking about. And that, I don't know, made me feel uncomfortable. So about 2 slides in, I decided to change it up and go with a different strategy. And I decided to just copy down the bullet that he seemed to be talking about at the moment, and then as he would talk about other things that weren't on the slide, I would just copy that down. And that worked really well until he switched slides, and so I didn't get all the slides, like all the little bullets for one slide, and it was really stressful. And so I don't know, I guess my Civ note-taking will be a continual work in progress. So, yeah. Okay, do these make me look cooler? I don't know. I think I'm going to continue the remainder of the video with them on. But yeah. Another thing that was really important about today's Civ was our Civ room was hot. It was so hot. It was almost like I was back in Houston outside. It was stuffy. There was very little air movement, and the air was just thick. Thick with knowledge, thick with frustration, and thick with apprehension, maybe? I don't know, probably not apprehension, but yeah, so it was Civ. But what we talked about the Romans. Oh, also, I am thoroughly convinced that the Romans had help building all of their fantastic architecture from aliens. I know that the Roman time period where all these fantastic architecture happened and were created was really well documented by historians, but I think the alien/world governments were actually the ones that were paying off the historians to leave that little bit out. I think it's just big conspiracy, because how could normal people, without the technology that we have, I mean, in our technology, buildings don't last that long, but with limited technology, create something like the Colosseum that is still standing today, something like the aqueducts that are still functional and usable. I mean, it's utterly amazing the architecture that the Romans were able to build, and, looking at us today, we have all of this technological advancements, and we can't create anything like that. They did it with their hands, with simple tools. They didn't have machines or cranes, which is also a machine, so it's a really bad sentence. They just did it, and I'd really like to be able to watch them, have like a video camera or videotape of it, but the video and the videotape didn't happen during that time period, so it's a little impossible. But anyway, we also talked about some of the Roman political system, going from like the Greek polis to just the Roman city-state and how they functioned as a society. You had the plebeians, I think is the name. I'm probably butchering it, but plebes. the plebeians, plebeians, shortened for plebes, the Plebian, plebeian. I think it's plebeian. I'm almost positive. We're gonna go with plebeian. You have the plebeian and the patricians, something like that. And those are the plebeians were the lower class, and the patricians, they were the upper class. And so the patricians, they really kind of took place. They were kind of the governmental powerhouses. The plebeians had to fight for to be politically active in society. So that was interesting. It was interesting about how there was this one time when the plebeians just went on to like Capitol Hill or something like that, something of the equivalent, and they just said, "Okay, we're done with this. You know, change this, or we're just not gonna be anymore." So they did. So they got a lot of political freedom from that, which is kind of cool. But yeah, Rome used to be governed by like the Etruscans, the Etruscan kings, and they're really kind of what is responsible for the architecture. They were very, very powerful, and the early Roman civilization let them be king. You know, until a certain point, there was probably a conflict or something, and they decided that it was time for the kings to leave. So, from what I understand, they were just like, "Yo, kings, you need to leave." So they did, and there might have been some bloodshed, maybe some hurt feelings, but there was no big war, you know, uprise of Roman citizens, you know, taking the kings out by the throats and cutting them open with a dagger or a knife, or doing some sort of witchcraft or heart-eating ceremony. I don't know. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't just big shebang. It seemed relatively peaceful. But yeah, the Romans are pretty cool. They're pretty rad. They're pretty intense. Even as a young city-state, they're pretty intense. So, I have the weekend off, and I'm definitely eager for day 3, and I cannot wait to see what it holds in store for me.